What's up, everybody? Of course, this is your man Savage Solo, Savage Solomon in the building, and we are here to talk about Pusha T, aka the Riddler. Now, for the most part, people do understand that Mr. Ugg universally has been able to crack a combination against Drake that has not been able to be done before. Look, before, historically, in the pantheon, in the nigga force, or in Drake's case, the half nigga force, many opponents have approached Drake and have not been able to crack the code, not be able to move beyond, oh, I think you're corny, you just got a woman fan base, you move like a bitch, blah, 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 blah. And Drake has been able to effectively counter each and every time with, I'm more successful than you, the women rock with me, and this is what I do. In fact, at one point in time where his credibility was actually in question by the way of one Meek Mill, when the ghostwriting rumors came out, when Meek Mill took to Twitter and got on his rant, and when Meek Mill decided to be emotional and just let all his little bitty Philly feelings out, Drake weaponized the feminine energy that was surrounding him and his entire career, and he said in a spirit bomb fashion, is that your world's tour or your girl's tour? The point is this, folks. Every time someone has tangled with Drake on his turf, within the confines of how he operates, they have always gotten demolished. But then here comes Mr. Pusha T. Pusha T is from a different era. Pusha T is from the classic seminal group known as The Clips, one Malice and one Pusha T. Ugh, I'm your Pusha. Therefore, effectively, Pusha T comes from a different level of battling. The reason why I liken Pusha T to the Riddler is for a couple reasons, which I will get into. But if we're going to talk about villains, Remy Ma would be Bane. Sadistically, she would be Bane. As far as villains go, she would be Bane. She came out and she broke Nicki Minaj's spinal cord very quickly, and she laughed when she did it. Now, if you go read the classic graphic novel, Batman Nightfall, Bane was a very sadistic bastard in that comic book, laughing and heckling and hee and kiki-ing while Bruce Wayne getting his back broke in his fucking pajamas with bat ears on them. That is the energy that Remy Ma represents. She's gonna break your back and she smiles. Pusha T, on the other hand, with his sadistic energy, he's gonna leave clues around. He's gonna be the Riddler. Think about it. As we continue to move forward and we decode the track, The Story of Adidon, people said, well, wait a minute, who is Adidon? Then we find out that it was actually a clothing line that Drake was planning on releasing by way of Adidas, because we know earlier, as reported by GQ magazine, that Drake was leaving the Jordan brand and moving forward with Adidas, and he was going to launch his own brand. Well, the night the track dropped, The Story of Adidon, as dope as the track was and as much of a death blow it was, and then of course the inflammatory blackface picture, oh, blackface Drake, what were you doing? People were still trying to figure out what is Adidon? What is that about? Riddler, the Riddler, he strikes again. Figure out what is Adidon. So the next day he was able to explain it, or we come to find out by way of Twitter, also Touré's Twitter page, where he stated explicitly clear that Adidon was a clothing line that Drake planned on launching, also revealing to the public, look, I have a son, after, of course, the woman that he impregnated, her image for the most part has been cleaned up, and it happens. It's all a part of media training. Men, women, famous, not famous, family members, whatever, they all go through the media training cleanup process. But Pusha T didn't frame it like that. Pusha T quickly railroaded everything and dropped The Story of Adidon. Now, some people who feel the track was a bit lazy. Let me go into the psychology of one Riddler Pusha T and the reason why he did it. Here's the thing, folks. We're either going to get a Drake that we have never seen before, a side of Drake that we have never seen before, a very pissed off, angry Drake. And I'm not sure if that's even going to be enough, because it seems whatever Drake adds out, Pusha T just moves to the next level. We're either going to get this type of Drake or we're going to get a Drake that's going to completely collapse under the pressure. The reason why he chose the Story of the OJ track, think about it, you all. My skin is black. My skin is yellow. Again, Pusha T has always been sadistic in his rhymes. He has. It's always been sadistic. He has a sadistic way of delivering his rhymes, even when he's referencing coke over and over. And some of the stuff he layered in between the bars of Lord willing and hell hath no fury until the casket drop as well. Pusha T is a sadistic motherfucker. The track was not only inspired by the likes of JayZ, who I do feel at times his fingerprints is on parts of this beef. Parts of the beef. But he selects the track Story of OJ with the sample in the background talking about my skin is black, my skin is yellow, and as Pusha T sadistically proceeds to devour Drake lyrically, he also is referencing an aspect of Drake that no other rapper with any type of visibility or any fucking balls would ever think to speak on Drake's name. Pusha T continues to antagonize the fact that Drake may be insecure with his biracial makeup. Now, some people may say, but Prince, what the fuck does that got to do with anything? But think about it. There's a code that has been cracked here by one Riddler Pusha T. One Riddler Pusha T has been able to crack the Rubik Cube that has been plaguing many fallen foes and opponents who have decided to come at one blackface Drake. Pusha T quantifies all of the insecurities that Drake has rapped about ad nauseum on many records, many club records, many hit records, many albums. The same type of insecurity that Drake has continuously rapped about. The higher ups are sending for me. These boys are jealous of me. They just hating on me. He has basically done this. Psycho-evaluated Drake, studied him, and said, it's not just that, oh, rappers are jealous of you, Drizzy Drake. It's because you're insecure that you're not black enough. Pusha T references Drake's afro and said, you never grow it out because it don't nap enough. To reference those specific attributes of one blackface Drake over the track of Story of OJ, and we know just off the energy of the Story of OJ what you're channeling. It's the same thing that Remy Ma did with Ether, the instrumental to Ether that Ron Browse produced. You're channeling a different type of creative force and energy that was begat in that studio. It's like when anybody raps over the Hail Mary beat, you're going to get a particular type of energy because that is the type of energy that music was created in, the space it was created in. So for Pusha T, again, Mr. Riddler, the Riddler Pusha T, to attack Drake racially and say that he's hung up on not necessarily guys not liking him per se because they're jealous of him, but the real underlining issue with all of this is that you feel you're not black enough. And to do that on purpose and also interject JayZ bars in the process hints to the fact that the track is not as simple as people are trying to make it out to be. He's basically did a complete inverse conceptually of the original concept of Story of OJ, where you had a black man who was confused about his identity. But then he just expanded it and expounded on the fact that Drake is biracial and he's been confused about his identity. He's also suffering from daddy issues, taking shots at his daddy. Talked about the fact that, you know, it's not even about me having necessarily a wife. It's about you being insecure with all the women in your life and the type of women you have chosen. Again, the Riddler on his psycho evaluation shit of one blackface Drake. Completely unprepared. I think for the most part, a lot of people are downplaying the genius of this track. He's attacked Drake racially. He's attacked Drake in front of his female fan base, which Drake has always shined over and over like an object. An object of this. The women that I have, you can be nice for what? And all of this other good stuff that he kicked out there. And to come to find out that you have a bastard child out here and the type of woman that you had to shoot your semen up in. Again, The sadistic nature of one Pusha T in his Riddler mode also highlights the fact when he says, let them know who your Beyonce is. Let them know who your fiance is. It's counter to the image of what you sold to a lot of these women. When you told these women about, look, you a college girl, you hold your head up. It's a lot of filibustering Drake does in his music when he's speaking to the ego or the fractured ego of a lot of these young ladies out here, or just even embracing who they are. Like, you go girl. A lot of Drake's anthem, it's a lot of you go girl anthem. And Pusha T completely shits on that and says, you shot your semen up in a porn star and you tried to hide the shit and you're doing border patrol. You're a dirty half nigga, blackface Drake. And many people, for the most part, were not prepared because we live in an era of subliminal diss. A post-JayZ subliminal diss era. Now, some people may say Prince JayZ wasn't a subliminal diss rapper. Yes, he was. The times he has been straightforward are the notable times such as The Takeover and some other tracks as well that we are familiar with. But outside of that, most of JayZ's career, he's been very subversive. So people tend to look up to that. JayZ is seen as the big homie over everybody, and a lot of people have emulated his style, i.e. Drake. Pusha T doesn't come from that. Pusha T comes from a very gritty, disgusting style. The likes of Hit 'Em Up, the likes of No Vaseline. Most of the era that Pusha T comes from has been filled with very disgusting diss records. Classic nonetheless. So there are some detractors that feel that Pusha did go too far. But he's sadistic. Of course he's going to cross the line. He's 40 years old. He comes from the Gen X era of real gritty street hip-hop, street hop. People say, man, why did he say that about 40 in his MS condition? I don't know. Oh, for the same reasons that Tupac talked about Mobb Deep and Prodigy in his sickle cell condition? This is the era that Pusha T comes from. And when Drake mentioned Virginia Williams on the track of Duppy, aka the Puppy Freestyle, I think Blackface Drake got a little ahead of himself, and he had been so used to sparring with the likes of Tory Lanez, who said, hey, I have a problem with Drake, I don't have a problem with Drake, Meek Mill, who initially at the beginning of the beef said, I got a problem with Drake, and then the next day he tried to apologize or say he was trying to pull back and say, leave that man alone on stage and let him breathe. Drake has been so used to dealing with people who weren't really all that sure if they wanted to engage with him, and so many of the rappers who come from his era, to be honest with you, who have been a little soft in the paint, a little light on their feet. But when Drake engaged with one Pusha T, a Gen Xer from the seminal classic group The Clips, who whole narrative, whole character style is gritty, just gritty, ashy, gritty niggatry, I think Drake got a little ahead of himself when he dropped Virginia Williams' name out there on the track. And he was not expecting that, and neither was the public, because for the most part, in this Drake era, many people have been accustomed to light jabs. People have been going harder on Instagram. People have been going harder on social media. 1985 was really seen as a diss record to a lot of people, and it was very light. Even if we talk about one of Drake's greatest battle accomplishments, back to back, if you really study the track, it was effective. It incorporated the social media aspect very well, but it was still overall light. If anything, the social media backlash, the internet has one culture, was far more brutal on one Meek Mill than Drake's actual bars from back to back. So people have been used to that. People got a little bit of a wake-up call, and they got some cold water on their face when Remy Ma dropped Sheether, and she is Bane to Nicki Minaj's Batman and broke her back on some Nightfall shit, and people was like, wow, this was brutal, this was just too much. But what happened with Remy Ma, I believe personally that was the extent of her strategy, to drop Sheether. After that, the follow-ups weren't as strong because Remy Ma wasn't really planning on going beyond Sheether. But we have Pusha T, which makes him different than one Bane Remy Ma. Pusha T is sadistic. He's the Riddler, and he's going to lay out clues, traps, hints, and he's going to lace them sadistically. Now people have cracked a few of Riddler Pusha T's riddles. We found out what Adidon was about. We found out that Drake had this grand campaign he was about to roll out. We found out that Drake, for the most part, has a child. I mean, that was a rumor, but it has been confirmed. So Pusha T says, I have more riddles in my bag. And when he decides to respond, which he will, I will let those riddles go. But the riddle is, should Drake engage at this point or not? He left a riddle for Batman Drake, Blackface Drake, correction. So I just wanted to point that out. Take a look at Pusha T. If you think about the track in its entirety, it's a very genius track, very brutal track. In fact, one of the riddles was infrared originally. We now see that was a bait trap. And if you study the character known as the Riddle in Batman, he has always baited Batman and many of the citizens of Gotham. And Pusha T has baited many of the citizens of hip-hop. And he has baited one of the immigrated citizens of hip-hop, a Canadian Drake. And he's cooked him like Canadian bacon. So we will see where this goes. Folks, leave your comments below. Tell me, what do you think about my theory about Mr. Riddle Pusha T and what will take place in this great battle? Peace.
This is the real Alex Jones, as you can see. I was put into this cartoon body by a reptilian. This reptilian took over InfoWars, and now I have to tell everyone the truth about my current state in order to get rid of the fake Alex Jones. Please join me as I fight for survival while still proclaiming the truth that the mainstream media frauds and young turds does not want me to tell you. Please join me here on InfoWars.